Jeff, are you on?
Yeah, man, what's going on?
Awesome. Let me see if my camera's. I don't know if my camera is going or not. I can't tell.
No, can you even do video on this?
I'm pretty sure you could. But I guess we'll start with audio only for the
Yeah.
first episode. Okay, cool. Let's dive right into it. Thank you all for joining first episode of the game in Atlanta. Infamous Falcons insider Jeff. I wanted to start right at the top. What's the latest on what's going on in the building? What are you hearing regarding us trading for a pass rusher, or just any other news that might not have hit the media yet?
No, so honestly, right now, the last thing that I heard was what I posted yesterday, man. Like after David Andrews was released, there was almost immediate mutual interest between the two parties. That's honestly the last thing that I've heard. I've asked for updates this morning. I haven't gotten any, which tells me that there's not probably a whole lot going on. Um, Unfortunately, these things, there's not immediate updates all the time, right? And so, um, you know, it kind of sucks, but this is kind of the wait and see aspect of this. But I kind of said over the last few weeks that this was going to be what this looked like, right? Like this was going to be a very slow, kind of painful process as they work through things. And as you know, Andrew, they've got to make a couple moves that they have not made yet to clear up some more cap space. So I think as we kind of forge through this path over the next couple of weeks, that when they start dumping a couple things or start making a couple moves with their current roster, that's what's going to signal that hey, something's coming.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, there are a couple of moves that they can make to, clear up space right away. Restructuring Bates is one, restructuring Terrell. So you typically want to do that with the people that are going to be sticking around for a while. You don't want to, start playing around with the contracts and pulling a lot of like guaranteed or like pulling a lot of money up front with people that you're not confident about. So I have no issues. I mean, look at what the Saints are doing, for example, right? Like they they were in a worse cap situation than we were. Ultra aggressive. They go after Justin Reed. They give Chase Young a lucrative contract, and now apparently they're interested in Cooper Cup too. So I mean, think about that. I think they were like negative 25 million against the cap. They cleared all of it up. They're fitting all these players. Not necessarily maybe the smart thing to do, but it's definitely possible.
Yeah, they're out there acting like Willy Wonka, giving out money to everybody that they don't have. Like it's crazy, but that just goes back to and we've the conversations this week as far as cap space, like you can tell people who have zero idea what it looks like and how it operates. And like I'm not gonna call it a myth, but like it's not hard to maneuver around the cap. And you move money around to future, to future cap air, years. And as cap increases, like it's just not a hard, fast, steady money line, right? Like it's not like us where, when you only have $10,000 left in the bank, you're not about to go spend 11,000, right? That's just not how it operates. And when the Falcons are going to make moves, they'll clear some space. They've got some things that they can do. They got guys that they can restructure. They got cuts that they can make. And right now they're not making those moves because they're still trying to. I from what I've been told, they're trying to figure out what they're ultimately going to be willing to part with for certain guys. And um, you know we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. One other news item is we lost two people in the trenches, one on the offensive line, one on the defensive line to the Bears. So Drew Dahlman, our starting center from last year, gets a pretty reasonable contract, 14 million per year from Chicago. And then Grady Jarrett, longtime Falcon, obviously had an incredible game during our Super Bowl, tying a Super Bowl record of 3 sacks in that game, and obviously captain of the defensive line, beloved by the Falcons community. Both of them go to Chicago, Jeff. But from what we've been seeing, their contracts were pretty reasonable.
Yeah, they
Was
were.
that was Atlanta in on either of them?
So I am told that Atlanta offered something very similar to both of those guys. And I know people love to fucking argue about everything. But let's talk about Grady first, right? Like, people need to stop looking at the overall number of these contracts. Okay. Grady ultimately gets just over 9 million guaranteed per year. I think it's like 9.3 million, right? 3 years, $28 million, I think, is the guaranteed portion of that contract. Falcons were close. I was told the Falcons were somewhere between 8.5 and 9 million on a restructure, which is very different than the 16 million that was basically not non-guaranteed or what he would have gotten, on the new year or whatever it was. Right. So you're talking just over half of what it would have, what he was initially scheduled to make here in Atlanta. So he chose to leave. Okay. And you can sit here and stop calling him washed. Like, that's just the most ridiculous, asinine description you can give Grady. One, anybody, and I tweeted this earlier this week and had this discussion. Anybody who's ever torn an ACL or an Achilles or any other major tendon knows it's a 2-year process. Yes, you can get back on the field within 9 months. Congratulations. But it's a 2-year process because you spend the first 9 months trying to get back on the field, and you spend the next 15 months testing to making sure you trust yourself to be able to do what you want to do because it's mental. Right. And so to call him washed is absolutely absurd. I promise you 2025 is going to be a big bounce back year for Grady. And ultimately, you're calling him washed because PFF doesn't like him. And I've already made my argument that PFF is absolute trash to begin with. And a lot of what Grady does and a lot of what nose tackles do and defensive tackles do is not necessarily going to be captured by statistics that PFF likes to capture. So calling him washed is just how you're going to deal with the fact that your hometown guy chose to go somewhere else. That's how you're dealing with it. But the dude's not washed. Okay, so let's get that out of the way. But yes, Grady chose to take maybe slightly more money, maybe $500,000 more to go to Chicago. And that to me probably hurts more than him actually just choosing to leave to Chicago because he had something similar on the table, but he chose to leave. And if you're a Falcons fan, that should be a wake-up call, right? Like that your captain, your community leader, the dude that has been here for 10 years, the guy that grew up, within 30 minutes of Mercedes-Benz, chose to leave and go somewhere else.
That definitely hits home, Jeff. And the part that kind of is a little contradictory is when the player surveys came out, the Falcons did really well. I thought the culture was changing in the building. They got A's across the board with rating a bunch of coaches and stuff like that, the facilities. So I thought maybe the franchise was making a turn and that people wanted to stay and be here. But clearly Grady's actions spoke otherwise.
But right, what does that survey not capture? And both Grady and Dahlman spoke about this in their introductory press conference. And I get it. Again, a lot of Falcons fans, especially ones that my mentions, talked about how, well, that's just what they're going to say. They both very specifically talked about of the fact that the Bears seem to have a direction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those player surveys, great. Yes, we all know the Falcons have top-notch facilities. We both know that Raheem Morris is well liked. But those surveys don't talk about direction of the franchise. And coaching is not necessarily in charge of direction of the franchise. That comes from the front office. And going back to near the end of the regular season, I was told, and again, when I put out this information, I don't ad lib, I copy and I paste. That's what I do, right? I was told there was an 80% chance that Terry Fontenot was not retained. Okay. That's the direction of the franchise. Your owner of the franchise doesn't even know what direction he wants to freaking go in. Right. So, like, that to me is this isn't a coaching issue. This isn't a facilities issue. This is a directional issue. And your vet was like, you know what? I don't like the direction that this franchise is heading. I don't want to continue to be part of a rebuild. And say what you want about the Chicago Bears, and I get it. It's frustrating because, last offseason they were the offseason champs and did nothing with it. But they were making splashes 48 hours before legal tampering was even allowed, right? Like, they were making trades, which you can do, by the way. They were making trades with teams to get better. You knew and you saw immediately what they knew coming into this year. They had to get better where? Up front and in the trenches. What were they doing 48 hours before you could talk to guys that had been cut or free agents? They were making trades to go out and get some of the top 3 or 4 guys at their position on the offensive line. They made the direction known. And say what, again, I don't give a damn about the Bears. You can say what you want about them. They had a very clear-cut decision and direction to make, and they made it. The Falcons, for 20 years now, the direction has been, hey, we got to get better at pass rush. And yes, it didn't work out last year with Matthew Judon. It didn't work out. I get it. But you made one move. Right, like, and then when it came time to make moves at the trade deadline, you did nothing, right? So, like, you can understand players' frustration when it comes to direction because there's not a direction here when it comes to the Falcons and the fact that they got to address the same nonsense for 20 years now, and they're not doing it. And so, yeah, you can understand why guys who are wanted in other places are like, screw it, we'll go where there's direction to be had.
Yeah, agreed. And you can go just as far back as last year, right? Because at first they're like, "Hey, we're signing Kirk. We're giving Kirk 100 million guaranteed. He is going to be the quarterback for the next 2 or 3 years," right? Then they get to the draft, right? And they go to Washington. They get enamored by Michael Penix. Fine. They love him. They say that this is the guy that they can't miss, that they can't pass up on, whatever. So you start with, let's hand Kirk 100 million. Then you draft Penix, and you're kind of like high level trajectory. You're not having a consistent philosophy. So
Yep.
you see that from last year. Now is it a bat like in theory, getting a veteran quarterback and drafting a rookie is all fine and dandy. That's actually a smart move. But the way they went about it, giving 100 million to a quarterback coming off an Achilles and then doing a complete 180 and kind of like throwing a bomb into the locker room, that is what kind of like drives people crazy. And I agree with you, Jeff. If the player grades or whatever that the NFLPA goes out had a category of maybe front office direction, we'd probably get an F there.
Yeah, but even and I do agree with you, right? Like, you initially started out last offseason, you went and you got the guy that was considered to be the number 1 rated free agent quarterback, which is where you needed to go. But if you knew that you were going to want, and it's not like they just all of a sudden showed up in Seattle and were like, oh, hey, we like this guy. Like, they purposely sent a lot of dudes out to Seattle to go take a hard look at Michael Penix, right? So if that was the case, why would you not go after? And I'm going to preface this by saying free agency has to be mutual. Like, the Falcons can be interested in everybody they want, but if players aren't aligned or don't have any interest in your city or your franchise, it doesn't matter who you like. And more importantly, people kind of forget this piece. If guys have agents who don't want to deal with your franchise, you can kiss that goodbye too, right? and you look at the market last year, you look at Justin Fields, you look at Russell, at Russell Wilson. Not saying that they didn't want to come to Atlanta, but those could have been two very different pathways that you took if you knew you were going to draft a rookie quarterback, because you saved yourself $90 million that you could have used at a lot of different places. And again, just kind of going back to the lack of direction, you were in on Daniel Hunter last year, and when you lost out on him, did you pivot and go to number two? No, you didn't. You just essentially gave up until you went and you were able to find, kind of seek a trade for Matthew Judon, who by the way isn't even in the same realm as some of the guys we're talking about, right? Like he
Mhm.
wasn't. Go ahead.
No, no, I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah, like Judon is just he was if and I'm not saying Hunter is in the top phase of pass rushers, but if that was your 1A, if that was your number one, Judon's got to be at 5 or 6.
Sure.
Right, like there's just a clear separation there, and you didn't go down the line. You skipped a few because you panicked, right? Again, lack of direction causes you to panic, and that's not just a Falcons thing. That's a life thing in general. If you have no direction and you're just skipping all over the place, it's because you're panicking because you have no sense of direction of where you want to go with your life, and that's the way that this franchise is being treated and has been for quite a while.
Well, let's just go back to the draft, right? I mean, they panicked there because I think what
Yeah.
happened when they had 8 overall, and Jeff, keep me honest here, is their plan was to take Laiatu Latu going into that day or maybe a few days before, right? That was the plan. But then they started getting calls at 8 to trade up, potentially teams telling them that they might take Penix. They panic, they take him there. I mean, that's just like another example of them not like kind of like sticking to their plan and maybe panicking.
And yes, and by the way, that just because I want to make it very clear that this is me agreeing with this is not because again I was very adamant that they were taking Latu last year, right? Like what happened during that draft has been verified by everybody under the sun that you guys watch on TV every day. Right within literally 36 hours after that draft, everybody was telling you that they changed their philosophy at the moment when they were on the clock because they did absolutely panic, right? And then Terry and Raheem verifying that they were immediately trying to trade back up into spots 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, right, to try to take Latu, verifies that they absolutely panicked and that what I told you guys heading into the draft last year was absolutely what was happening. But again, yes, they absolutely panicked because they don't, again, the lack of direction, which has now been verified by the two big free agent, not even free agents, right? But the free agent you had in Dahlman, and then your leader, your locker room leader, both telling you, by the way, the lack of direction. We're happy to be with a franchise that seems to know what they're doing and where they want to go.
Yeah, and it hurts that it's the Bears for God's sakes. It's not like they're going to a well-oiled machine like Philly or KC or something like that. You're going to the freaking Bears who have a first-year head coach and their GM hasn't really proved much of anything. So it's not like, Grady's going into one of like the best franchises in the world. So it just shows you that the fact that he chose Chicago over Atlanta speaks volumes to me.
Agreed. Completely agree.
So, Jeff, let's go into some positive news. Let's talk about some of the free agent signings and moves that we made thus far. So, the biggest one is we get former Bulldog Leonard Floyd coming back into Atlanta. I think he grew up pretty close by the stadium, too, if I'm not mistaken. So, we get him on a 1 year deal. San Francisco gutting their entire roster cuts Floyd, and literally 3 hours later, he's a Falcon.
Yeah, I absolutely. uh, And here's what I'll say: this is why this franchise, this fan base is so interesting to me, right? Like it almost feels like this fan base is split into two: Falcons fans, and then Falcons fans that are also Georgia fans, right? And the two never seem to agree on anything. By the way, I actually really do like this signing because I feel like Floyd's going to come in and I feel like he has something to prove, right? And, getting cut is a hit to an ego, and all of those guys have egos, right? No matter how well mannered they are, how well spoken they are, all of those guys have egos, and they should, right? Like they are the best at what they do, and when you get cut, especially Leonard Floyd wasn't expecting to get cut. Like that was not on his 2025 bingo card. And for him to immediately pivot, because there were a lot of other teams that wanted his services, and he chose to come home, right? Like he chose to come to Atlanta, and that you really have to like love the fact that a guy from Georgia wants to come and potentially end his career. Will he? Don't know, but he's got something to prove. Like there's a chip on that shoulder, and I love the fact that that guy's coming here and he wants to be here, and he's got he still has something left in the tank, and he feels like he's been shorted, he feels like he's been disrespected, and so I love that. I think he's gonna play well here. I think the issue though for him, again, not trying to be negative during a positive segment, right? But it takes more than one.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, what else are they going to, who else are they going to be able to pair with him in order to make sure that you get the best of what he's got left? And so that, I think it's a positive step. But now, again, direction's going to show how do you follow that up?
Yeah, exactly. And then, we get Mike Hughes back on a pretty reasonable deal,
Yeah.
$6 million per year. He doesn't really. He's all right. I'm not crazy about him, but cheap deal, so doesn't
Yeah, it's
really.
fine. Now.
Yeah. And then the other signing, Jeff, 2 years, 14 million, I believe. Divine
Oh,
Diablo.
God. I'm not sure how you want me to be positive about this. Okay. So, great elite athlete, right? But again, that's probably most NFL guys, right? Like those guys are all elite athletes. I love that we as fans, right? We have gotten to the point with with this franchise where we start to make excuses and we start to see shit that's not actually there, right? Like, yes, this dude is a great athlete. He is terrible in coverage. And what was hilarious to me was people that I choose to follow back and the conversations that were being had in my mentions was how people were really excited to see this guy in coverage. Let me give and I put this out in a tweet. Through his career, his short NFL career, teams have completed 75% of their attempts against him in coverage for almost 1,000 yards.
Oh
Okay,
man,
that is not good. But to kind of ignore that fact, the same play where he dropped back on the goal line in coverage in Oakland or Las Vegas, wherever the hell it was, drops back on the goal line, knocks down the passer, intercept. That was the one play that everybody showed. I'm like, yeah, because that was the one play he made in coverage, right? Like it's just not. Yes, he's a great athlete. Yes, he can run fast. Yes, he can stick with guys. But no, he is terrible in coverage. And I giving this guy 14 million, I just it's laughable. And maybe that's the positive spin is we get to laugh. Well, and when you laugh, you kind of have a little bit of smile on your face, right? Like that's how we make the positive spin. But like I just don't. And like I really wanted to say something stupid, and I'm gonna withhold that. He's probably the 5th best linebacker on this roster.
wow. Well, I mean, our linebacking core is pretty strong.
They're pretty good, right? But I feel like, and there's going to be a part of the fan base that hates that I'm about to say this, and I think the other half of the fan base will agree. There's a part of this fan base that loves the signing because it's not a white linebacker, and I hate to say that, but it's absolutely the truth, right? Like our linebackers are pretty good. They're not as athletic as he is. He's absolutely the most athletic linebacker we have, right? Like there's no doubt about that one. But when it comes to sense of an ability and kind of that second nature to play linebacker, he's not very good, right? To me overall, he's probably the fourth or fifth best linebacker on here. But hey, when Troy tears his ACL again in October, you got a guy that'll be able to step right in and handle business. I guess though the drop off will be tremendous.
Man, when Troy's on though, he looks really good. Him and Ellis,
Yeah,
that's a strong duo right there.
completely agree.
Um, but yeah, I think Jeff, maybe the guy just has high like PFF marks, so everyone's kind of latching on to that. It's funny how people use PFF to defend their beliefs, but then when you throw it back in their face, say, "Oh, you can't use PFF." I feel like I see
Yes,
that all the time.
it's almost like my wife throwing something back in my face from like 12 years ago. I don't even remember what the hell you're talking about, but like it made some sort of weird argument. So, and anybody who's been married or has a significant other knows exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's the same concept, right? Like, hey, PFF says this, right, but here's reality. Oh, well, yeah, it's absurd. But again, that's why I cannot stand PFF because it's absolute nonsense.
Yeah, and they rate Caleb McGarry high, and you know how I feel about him. I think he's gonna get
Oh,
Penix killed next year, so that's all I need to
Oh,
know.
100%. You and I absolutely agree on that. And that was, I mean, but I brought that up on draft night. Like you went out, you got a left-handed quarterback with a terrible right tackle. Like it
Yeah,
just they're replacing McGarry is nowhere on their top 50 things to do right now, which to me is absolutely insane. He's is he one of the worst first round draft picks that this franchise has ever had? No, he's probably not even in the top 20 if I'm being honest, but he's still not very good.
yeah, but that's a low bar. I mean, we've had some
That's
pretty.
true, right?
um,
Yeah, midgets are walking underneath that bar at this point.
I mean, look, what people need to realize is when you shift someone from, well, you're not even shifting his position on the line. He goes from, he's the blindside tackle now, so like it's harder on the QB to kind of shift around in the pocket and whatnot, see the pass rush coming when you have McGarry at the blind side. You're moving from Matthews, being able to handle his own versus McGarry there. That causes problems. And you could just like watch the last three games. If McGarry was an above average, let's just say he was an average tackle as a non-blindside tackle, even though I don't really agree with that. That injury that Kirk apparently went down on in the Saints game was completely on McGarry, so you can't even argue that like he's above
Right.
average or whatever. But let's just say you did. When you become the blindside tackle, I feel like that, and you've never played that position before. Like I don't think he's ever been a blindside tackle like that really can drop whatever statistics you might have might really tank the following year.
No, and there are people who don't play offensive line, never have, and go, oh well, you can just flip them, right? No, moving Jake from left to right, there's a huge learning curve, and so that it's just not something you can do. Maybe Jake would probably be all right at it. But the mannerisms are different, right? The technique is different. Like it's just not it's not like going from right guard to left guard, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not it's very 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 different. And we are now trusting Michael Penix's life in the hands of Caleb McGarry, who I wouldn't even let babysit my dogs if we're being honest with you. Like it's not he's not good. He hasn't been good. Working alongside Chris Lindstrom makes him look better than he is if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Like that dude covers I feel like that dude covered up a lot of issues for both Dahlman, for as well as McGarry, and so I just don't, maybe that's a spin that thank God we've got Chris Lindstrom out there on the right hand side. But you can't just flip flop guys in and out. It's just not how it works. The technique is very different. And for me, I would have loved to have seen them address that right tackle, hell, even in the second round of the draft, there's some guys that will be in that draft that you go, you know what, you can bring them in and actually be pretty good, or you go out and get a great, and you see it all the time, go out and get a great left tackle from college and flip him to the right, and it's a guy that understands, as you're bringing them up, um, you know, you're bringing those guys up, you're bringing them along, teaching them those techniques. But for a guy like Jake Matthews, who's been at that spot for more than a decade now, for what is it, 179 straight starts or 180,
Hmm.
whatever it's been, right? You can't just say, oh yeah, by the way, forget everything you've done now for 12 years. We need you to kind of flip flop that, and best of luck. And that's just not how things work.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, people are probably going to flame me in the comments section for this. I know we desperately need to address the defense, but if Michael Penix goes down, all of this is for nothing. Like, if there's this kid, Armon Membu, if he somehow falls to 15, like, I know it wouldn't be a popular decision, but shit, that guy as Penix's blindside tackle, we wouldn't have to worry about him for the next like 10 years. He's really him, man. I would love to have Membu on the team, but I know that the front office is not like there's no way they don't take a defender there.
Yeah, like but I agree with you though, right? Like if you are the Falcons, and a potentially um, career blindside tackle for your franchise quarterback is at 15, to me it's almost a no brainer,
Yeah.
right? Like
They
yes,
will get roasted though. Like there's that I bet you Terry's thinking that in his head, like if I don't take a defensive lineman, I am gonna get killed by the media.
well, I mean he's probably not going to take a defensive lineman at 15 anyway, right? But
True, true.
Um, but like if you really believe that Michael Penix is your franchise quarterback, your job is to protect him. And right now you do not have a blindside tackle worth of shit that can protect him. And it's all fun and games. Fans are all, would be all in on his head until Penix goes down because McGarry, tried to kick somebody because he got beat. And next thing you know, now again, a quarterback with a long injury history in college now all of a sudden gets injured here, things start to look very different for your franchise. So if you have an opportunity to address that in the draft, yes, it might piss people off, but people with brains go, you know what? We have a franchise quarterback. Our job is to protect him first and foremost. You go that route. Now, are they going to go the only, by the way, as of right now, the only way that they go defensive lineman at 15, if they still have that pick, by the way, is if one of the two guys from Georgia is available at 15. The top three guys on this draft board for the Falcons are all Georgia products. And again, the only way, Pierce is not there, Jahad Campbell is not there. All these guys that this fan base would love to see based upon their allegiances. The top three guys on the Falcons board right now, and it was solidified by the UGA's Pro Day. All three dudes from Georgia, right? So Mikael, um,
Williams.
Mikael Williams, Malik Starks, and then what's his name? The other edge rusher that Georgia had. Those are the three guys that are the top three on their board. So yes, Georgia fans, like you may finally get your wish. You may finally get a Georgia Bulldog taken by the Falcons in the first round. But again, the only way that as of right now, and again, they still have some pro days to go to. They still got evaluations to perform here over the next month. Right now, if they still have pick 15 and the two edge rushers from Georgia are off the board, it will be Malik Starks again as of this moment. And people hate when I say that, but this is such a fluid situation. The draft is so fluid that, and as we saw last year, Terry Fontenot is not afraid to abandon what he had coming in,
Yeah.
if he feels like if he needs to pivot in the last second for whatever reason.
So Jeff, if Walker or Williams are on the board, we're taking them over Starks because I
Yep,
remember. Okay, because they're very high on Starks.
they are very high on Starks, but the belief for the front office is that those two guys will be off the board by 15. Those two guys,
Got
they
it.
believe those two guys will be off the board in the top 10, and they are not. The Falcons are not moving into the top 10 to take either one of them. The Falcons will move back this year. They are not going to move up.
Yeah,
So
especially if we make a trade for Hendrickson, which will at minimum I don't know how we keep our 15 overall, but let's be in that scenario where since he accepted a second and a fourth, for example, right? I'm
sure.
pretty sure that they're gonna want to trade back and try to get some of their maybe they get, they trade down from 15 to the top of the second, pick up another second and a third. So I mean that wouldn't be the worst scenario for us if we somehow can get Hendrickson without giving up 15. We could really do some damage in this draft.
I agree with you. And I mean, I tweeted this out the other day and got absolutely hammered. For me, I just don't understand the issue. Like if the guy who has been a four-time Pro Bowler, again, the last 4 straight years, he's led the NFL in sacks. Um, Hendrickson is a guy. If you believe that that is who you really want, and you believe that the guy with those credentials is going to change your defense, why would you not give up 15? Right? I don't understand how part of this fan base is like, no, that's absurd. He's 31. I don't give a shit how old he is. I'll be quite honest with you. When you look in this draft, you don't have rookies who come in and have that type of impact immediately. They don't have the impact in the locker room. They don't have the respect in the locker room. They don't have the respect on the field, and they don't have the production on the field. Right? Go back and look last year. The only rookie in the top 50 of sacks was Fisk at LA. And he wasn't even the defensive rookie of the year. His teammate wasn't Jared Verse.
Mm-hmm.
And Verse had 4 sacks last year, by the way. 4.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Like it's hard to get a rookie to just automatically contribute on the D line and all of a sudden become a sack master. It takes someone special like a Parsons, like a Garrett, someone of that caliber, maybe. But when we're talking about, I don't know if that Walker and Williams could just step in and contribute right off the bat, maybe towards the end of the season. But I agree with you, Jeff. It's going
Like
to
it's
be,
just yeah, like and but when you look at those two, are they Micah Parsons? Probably not. Like literally the chances of them being that guy immediately literally slim to none. Like you may almost have a better opportunity at winning the Powerball than one of those two coming in and being that dude. Right? Like you look at the history of the NFL draft and the impact of or lack of impact by rookies on the defensive line. History says that those two are not going to be that guy. History says it takes them 3 to 4 years to develop into that guy. So you're basically through their entire rookie contract before they become that guy, right? Usually it's right around 3.5, 4 years before they start to make that type of impact. So to me,
yeah.
if you have a guy and you can go get a guy like Hendrickson and use your 15th, we're not talking a top 5 pick, people. We're talking halfway through the first freaking round. If you have that to give to go get that guy, you use it to go get that guy.
So my only concern with using 15 on Hendrickson is whatever we're gonna pay for Hendrickson, I rather just pay the additional amount to get Parsons. Does that make sense? So like if we're gonna get a freaking BMW, right? I just want it fully loaded. Like I want to just go all the way with it and get the pass rusher that's younger. Parsons is only 26 years old. Hendrickson is 31, and I don't doubt for the next 3 years Hendrickson's gonna contribute and do well for us. It's just that Parsons could be here for 10 years. So if the asking price for Hendricks is 115 overall. If that's it, and Parsons is 2 first rounders, I rather give up the additional first round pick so we have someone there for an extended period of time. So I don't know what Dallas is looking for though, draft compensation wise.
So my intuition again. I have no idea. Right. So we're at this
Hmm.
point we're just speculating. Um, Hendrickson is going to cost you probably a first and a fourth or a first and a fifth would be my deal or my guess as of this moment. Right. Like obviously the longer you sit, the more Cincinnati does not want to pay him what it is. that probably comes down, right? When you look at a guy like Micah Parsons, you're looking at more like a Mac type deal. You're gonna give up 3 first round picks for him.
Oh
Right?
man.
Yeah, I mean, you're just, but I mean, you're talking about a guy who's literally knocking on the door of being the defensive player of the year at 26, right?
Yeah.
Like to go get a guy like him or a guy like Myles Garrett, it's going to cost you 3 first round picks plus probably a third and a fourth, and like it's going to cost you, you know. Almost what the Saints gave up to go get Ricky Williams, 20 years ago, right? Like they gave up their entire draft class to go get this guy, and obviously that didn't work out for them, and that was hilarious to watch. But
It should.
like we're not talking we're talking about a premier guy at 26 in the NFL. The Cowboys are not simply going to say, "Yep, give us 1 first round pick and maybe a third or fourth, and we'll let them have." That's never going to happen, right? Like you're talking three. You're probably talking a minimum of 5 draft picks overall. 3 of them are going to have to be first. Are you willing to make that kind of commitment to a guy like Micah Parsons? So you look at the draft in 2025, 26, 27, 28. Do you see a guy like Micah Parsons in the drafts at all over the next 4 years?
That and on top of it, it's not that you're just giving up the 3 first rounders. Parsons is going to require at least what Garrett got, right? Like he's going to want a $40 million a year
Oh,
extension.
he's gonna reset the market. I mean, 40 would be nice. He's probably gonna get 43 to 45.
If I told you that a year ago, 40 for Parsons is nice, you'd probably think I'm crazy.
Oh God. I mean, well, a year ago, if you had said that any non-quarterback was going to get that kind of money, they'd have had you committed, right? Like
Yeah.
they would have had you put in a straitjacket and sent over to Ridgeview for some mental health.
It's just crazy to me, Jeff, that we could have literally had Parsons in the draft, but instead, with Fontenot's, I think, first draft as the Falcons GM, he decides to go with a tight end at 4 overall. We could have traded down nicely, taken Parsons with like the 10th pick, recoup some draft capital, but unfortunately, we're in the position we are today, and we're still looking for a consistent pass rusher. Just haven't had it since John Abraham.
Oh, agreed, agreed. And we're not, yeah, we're not going to include that fluke season by Vic Beasley either.
Yeah, and it's funny too because during I think in that specific year, we also had what was it? Dwight Freeney, I believe,
Yep.
was mentoring Beasley. So I think that went a long way for Beasley as well. And the following season, we might have cut Freeney, and that's when Beasley started tanking. So it just goes to show you, like, having like a consistent presence in the building, mentoring the younger guys, like it's an important thing. You can go back to 06, 07, I believe, where we took a longtime Saint, Joe Horn, right?
Yep.
Yeah, on the Falcons, we signed him, and at that point, Roddy White was pretty inconsistent. Like he would show flashes, but he would never like hold it all together. And then all of a sudden, Horn being in the building kind of taught Roddy like how to do like how to be a professional, this, that, and the third. In the following year, Matt Ryan's rookie year, Roddy went off. The point I'm trying to make is when you go from someone like a Horn to Roddy to Julio, whatever, like you're sort of like passing down the tradition, like, hey, this is what you're supposed to do to get to the next level. We just haven't had that with pass rushers. We've just kind of like had a dead space since Abraham left. No one really there to mentor the D line, like no player to kind of show that. We had that one season with Freeney and Beasley and it worked, but Beasley just wasn't committed to the game and fell off quickly after that.
Yeah, and that's and it's I think it's always important to have that successful vet, right? Like if you have a chance to bring in a Hall of Fame player at the end of their career so you can mentor the young guys, for me you always do it. Right now, I don't care what the sport is. I don't care if it's Major League Baseball. I don't care if it's basketball. I don't care if it's football. Like, if you have an opportunity to bring in a Hall of Fame player to mentor young guys, like you jump at that, and it may cost you a couple extra $1 million, but the insight and the way that they go about their business and show those young guys how they do it is invaluable, and it's something that can't be taught by a coach Because if we're being honest, the respect between players and Hall of Fame players are very, very different. And so, you haven't had that. You haven't had that type of experience. And quite honestly, I mean, this front office hasn't shown the interest in going out to do things like that in certain positions that would be great to do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the one that comes to my mind immediately, and I don't know that there's a Hall of Fame person, just sitting there in free agency, but like, I think Kyle Pitts could really use that kind of mentoring and like tough love. Like he has all the talent in the world, but damn, like he just can't string it all together and be consistent.
No, which is why for him, and again, I know half the fan base is torn on him. Half want him, half don't. But for his own development, going to a place like Kansas City with Kelsey, going to a place like San Francisco, would probably be really beneficial for his career because you're talking about two of the best two Hall of Famers in those places that show him how to be a true professional. He doesn't have that here. He's never had that here. The direction, um, you know, you kind of look back at his career and I think Matt Ryan wasn't just good for him on the field. Matt Ryan is in my opinion a Hall of Fame quarterback and showed him a lot of things as a rookie, which is to me is why he had a very successful rookie campaign. Again, that type of mentorship matters, and this franchise just doesn't have it because again, something that we started out with 45 minutes ago talking about the lack of direction.
Yeah, exactly. And you saw after Gonzalez left, like you saw Matt Ryan kind of, you know, um, mentor the tight ends that came after him. Like think about Hooper. Like he made Austin Hooper a thing. Hooper caught a touchdown in the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? So like Matt knew kind of like, hey, this is what you're supposed to do as a tight end. He saw Tony do it. He probably had a very positive influence on what do you call it, on Pitts the 1 year he was here. But after that, I mean, let's come to I don't, I have my issues with Kyle Pitts, but in his defense, every single year he's been here, he's had a different quarterback. He went from Ryan, Mariota, Ritter, Penix, Cousins. Like he also needs to establish a consistent baseline too, and hopefully Penix being here one more year, like just gets a full season of training camp with Penix. Maybe they start developing the chemistry because even though Pitts had that blundered catch or whatever against the Giants, right, where like he played hot potato with the ball and led to Penix's first pick. Penix trusted him when it counted most. Penix wants him here. 4th and 10, playoffs on the line, season on the line, on the road, Sunday night football. Penix fired a laser to Kyle Pitts. You don't throw that ball to someone you don't trust, right? So Penix wants him here. I know I feel that. I just don't know that. I don't know if the front office has had enough.
Yeah, but it just goes back to something we talked about on your FF Metrics podcast last week or the time before. Let's say that Pitts comes out and has a great year. Okay. Because again, he showed flashes last year. We talked about the fact he had a 5 game stretch last year where if he had that stretch through the entire season, he ends up with run 1,350 yards, right? So, like, he has flashes. So, let's say he puts it all together this year. Are you going to give him a 5 year deal worth 12, 13, 14, $15 million a year, which is what he'll get? You're not, right? The Falcons are not going to give him that kind of money. So if you know that he's not in your future plans because you're not going to give a tight end $14 million a year, get something for him now, right? Maybe not now. Maybe before the draft, so you have additional draft picks. Maybe at the trade deadline, so you pick up some more for 2026. But if you know that he has a special year and he actually produces like he's able to produce, you're not. We all know this franchise is not going to give him 14, $15 million a year, which again is what he will get on the open market. Like that. That to me is the floor of what he's going to get. So if you know that
I
that's the case, why would you
I
not go get something for him?
Yeah, I agree with you, Jeff. And the thing is, I don't think it's going to be 12, man. Like, let's just say, best case scenario, Pitts goes crazy this year. Like, he becomes an all pro, the player that we thought we were getting at 4 overall or whatever. Kelsey's average annual salary is 17 million per year. You have to think that Pitts is going to probably want, especially with a higher salary cap now and that he's young, he's probably going to want 20 million per year. So if as a front offense, you have to kind of like have a little roadmap, right? If Pitts continues doing what he does, then we should probably trade him anyway. If he pops off, are we going to pay him 20 million a year? No, we don't want to do that. Okay, we should trade him. It sounds like whatever happens, the front office would go to the conclusion and we should probably get rid of this guy. But my question to you, I know when the offseason first started, Casey was kind of hot on Pitts because they didn't know if Kelsey was coming back. Did the interest in Pitts cool down, or has the front office gotten more comfortable about rolling with Pitts one more year?
So I've been told that there have been a half a dozen teams that have reached out about Pitts' availability. And so it's not just Kansas City that has interest in him. There have been numerous other teams that have been interested in him, and I think that interest kind of I don't want to say it shocked the front office, but they were kind of taken aback by the fact that a guy that has not produced very well for them in 3 of his 4 years here. But now it's not just like the lower barrel teams that are interested. It's the elite teams, right? Like it's some of the best offensive minds in the game are interested. And so does that change their mind? Probably not, because again, they're not going to give him what he's going to get on the open market. They're not going to match anything. They're not going to be willing to set the market with him as a tight end. So has it cooled? I don't know, because I don't know what their asking price is. I don't know. I've not been told what the Falcons are asking for Pitts, right? Like that is I just haven't been told that, and so I don't know that the market's cooled. I don't know if the Falcons are being unreasonable in what they're asking for, or if it's one of those things where teams are reaching out to kind of gauge what it will take to eventually get him post, um, you know, kind of post draft, heading into the season. So, it's when you look at this draft, there are some really really good tight ends in this draft, and
Yeah,
so if you're in the market for a tight end, do you hope one of them falls for you? And then is Pitts kind of like the backup to that? That's probably what we're gonna see, right? Like you're hoping that some of these tight ends, what's his name out of Penn State, probably gonna go in the top 15 would be
Warren.
my guess. Yeah, that dude's really, really, really good. Um, you know, but kind of going back to, you look at Bowers as a rookie. Bowers opened up a lot of eyes. I think people were kind of taken aback at how elite he was, which is insane to me that you thought that. Because for me, and this may sound absurd, and I say some absurd shit, and I get that. To me, Bowers should have been a two-time Heisman Trophy winner. Like to me, his last 2 years in college, Brock Bowers was the best player in America, and I don't even think it was remotely close. And then he comes out as a rookie in the NFL and obliterates all of the tight end records that have stood for 50, 60 years, right? Whatever it's been. So, now everybody wants to have that, right? Like everybody wants that elite tight end because you've seen what guys like Kelsey and some of the other guys can do with their careers and what they mean to quarterbacks. And now these guys are even better athletes than they were even 5 years ago, right? And so, do they want? Yeah, I think for me, it looks like Kyle Pitts is kind of the backup plan if some of these three or four tight ends don't go to the teams that would love to have them. I think Kyle Pitts, then phone calls start heating up, and maybe there's a really good chance that Kyle Pitts is not here next year because of the fact it comes back to, yes, you probably get a compensatory pick, but we all know that compensatory pick is not going to compare to a package that you could potentially get for him by trading him.
Yeah. And Jeff, as we start wrapping up, I want to hit one question we got in the comment section to Alex Jones. He's asking whether or not CJ Mosley, who obviously has a connection to our new DC, Jeff Ulbrich, could he be an option for the Falcons? He doesn't share the same sentiment as us when we think that the linebackering core is decent here. Do you think Mosley could potentially come into um to the Falcons?
Oh, God. I mean, you're talking about a guy in close to mid 30s, right? Like he's 32, 33. Like what does he bring to the table that the Falcons don't already have? Like, I mean, we just got done talking about having Hall of Fame guys come in and mentor. CJ Mosley's not even remotely close to a Hall of Fame player. I don't see the added value he brings other than being a 12-year, 10-year, 12-year, whatever it is, vet in the NFL. Is could he potentially be added to the roster? Probably. Is that going to be an imminent signing? No. Have I been told anything directly? No. I'll reach out. I'll be happy to reach out and see what if there's any interest there. But when he was released yesterday by the Jets, that was not a name that I was given immediately. So I don't even know that he's in their plans. Um, but again, I don't know what he brings to this roster. Like he doesn't upgrade the linebacking core.
Yeah, and the only thing that I'll say, yeah, I don't think that he significantly does upgrade it, but losing someone like Jarrett, maybe he's like that, that presence. But like, has he won a super? He hasn't won a Super Bowl, right? Like but he's probably had deep playoff pushes. I think with his time in Baltimore, if I'm not mistaken. I just don't remember how far he's actually gone. So it's not like you're getting someone that's won a Super Bowl or knows how to win a championship, right?
No, like he hasn't. I mean, he's 3 years removed from an All Pro. He's been to 5 Pro Bowls. I mean, he's been fine.
Yeah,
He's been a very good NFL player. Um,
agreed.
but he's on the back end of his career, right? And this isn't a Trey Hendrickson type back into the career where at 31, like he's been to the Pro Bowl 4 straight years, not Pro Bowl, but he's been an All Pro 4 straight years now, right? Like we're entering season 3 away from like his last best season.
Mhm.
So he seems to be on the decline, not on the up. I feel like he's on a different trajectory than a Trey Hendrickson, even though he's a year older. Like you haven't, Hendrickson has produced at the elite level late in his career, whereas Mosley was producing at, kind of in that prime area, right? Like that 25, 26, 27, 28 range. And as he's gotten into his 30s and kind of, at 30 was his last great year. And the last couple of years, you've seen him trend downwards. So I don't know that again. You're not bringing a guy with a lot of fire to the table. You're bringing a guy on the last leg of his career to the table because yes, he has taken a lot of snaps, and yes, that's something that you can't replicate. And so maybe that leadership piece that you just talked about, when you lose a guy like Grady Jarrett, you bring in a guy like C.J. Mosley who has that leadership piece, who's played for a really good franchise in the Ravens, and understands kind of that leadership piece, and that was a big reason they brought him to New York, right? It was because of that leadership. So,
Yeah.
does he bring something? Yes, he does. Does he make the linebacker room better? I don't know if he makes it better. But he definitely brings a sense of a leadership piece, which I've already said is valuable, right? Like you can't coach that. But I don't know that he makes them better. But from a mentorship perspective, maybe you do kick the tires and see if there's some interest there. If you can get him for a veteran minimum, you're not going to go out and pay him 10, $12 million, but if you can get him for 4, 5, 6 million, that it's definitely worth, for me, it would be worth a franchise going after at that point.
Another question from the chat, Jeff. Do you think that a first round pick could potentially be on the table for Kyle Pitts?
I would be shocked, to be honest with you.
I
Um,
would too.
I he hasn't done anything to warrant being a first round to getting a first round pick. I think you're probably looking at a third round. And if you can get a third round for him, I think you probably jump at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't think it would be any higher than a third round.
Yeah. To be fair, I think the guy was kind of saying that comment tongue in cheek. So I'm not entirely sure if he was being serious about it. Cause like, look, someone like Hendrickson, Parsons, those are the guys you give up first round picks for, right? Someone like Pitts, who has potential, but, hasn't really realized it yet. I don't know that we give up that we can even if we got a third, I'd be pretty happy with that return, but we'll
Yeah,
see.
and people forget that the NFL is not the NBA, right? Like teams are not taking guys based on potential. The NFL would rather have a 6-year senior, like you saw that. I mean, you've seen some quarterbacks, right? Guys that were 6-year seniors, and taken pretty high in the draft. You're going to see another one this year with Cam Ward, right? Like, the NFL would rather have guys who proved it in college and stayed till they were 22, 23. And were a lot less gamble than the NBA, who will take a 19-year-old because they believe that their ceiling is really high and give them $100 million, right? Like it's just a very different league, and so NFL GMs and coaches are not, um, by and large, they're not willing to take a risk on guys who haven't shown the ability to do anything for a sustained amount of time.
Yeah, for sure. Jeff, we'll cut questions off at 12:05 Eastern, but I'm gonna just keep rattling them off to you as they come in. Next one from Lonnie. Are the Falcons in trade talks with anybody with other teams for anything other than an edge rusher? Jeff, you mentioned something I think earlier where we might be looking to trade Algier. Is that still on the table?
Yeah, so the Falcons are absolutely taking phone calls for Tyler Algier. A guy that's in the last year of his contract, a guy who is absolutely 100% leaving at the end of the year, right? And so, is that does he entice them to go? Is that a guy that helps facilitate a trade for Parsons, right? Like, do you give up, instead of 3 firsts, you give up 2 firsts in Algier, right? But yes, they are absolutely willing to part with Tyler Algier, which I think is the right move. Again, a guy last year of his contract, he's not going to re-sign here. He's going to be, he's going to be somebody else's Michael Turner, which is fine because Bijan Robinson to me is the guy. I even said on your FF Metrics podcast a year ago where you had quote unquote Falcons insider saying that it was going to be a 50-50 split. I flat out told you guys it was going to be 70-30 Bijan, and if you look at the final stats, it was 100% 70-30 Bijan, right? Like there
Mhm.
there was there was no this coaching staff had zero qualms about who was running back number one. Fans may have been split on it, but that coaching staff, Bijan is their running back one, and it was never in question, right? And so, with that in mind, yes, Tyler Algier is on the market. Yes, they are actively taking calls for him. Is a trade imminent? I'm not going to say it's imminent, but if he's not, I would be shocked if he's not traded by the end of the NFL draft.
Yeah, and here's the deal too. It's not like we're not fans of Algier. I actually think Algier can go on maybe 15 other teams and be their
hundred
RB1.
percent.
He's really good. The problem is when you get to the end of next year, we're not going to pay him $6 million a year when we have Bijan's contract incoming. So might as well get some picks for him from now because the thing is even if he walk next year you guys can say oh we might get a comp pick for him but the problem is when you have a backup running back and they're not really producing the numbers it's not like Algier is going to walk in and get 15 million per year so the comp pick could be limited might as well get that pick in a draft
Yep,
where we desperately need it
100%, 100%.
uh okay. And then, Jeff, another question from Matt Bauer. When the team drafts so ineffectively, you kind of
Yep.
have to fill in rosters with experienced guys on short-term deals, right?
I mean, ideally though, uh, and I forgot who it was yesterday, but they were comparing him to Howie Rossman, right? And if you look at Rossman's first like 4 drafts, they other than drafting Kelsey, and Fletcher, his first 3 drafts were absolutely horrid, right? And so yeah, like I'm really this question because yes, you obviously have to be really effective in free agency, but one, you have to have the money to go out and spend on some of these, and 2, guys have to be willing to take short term uh, uh,
Mhm.
contracts. Not every guy is willing to take a 2-year contract, right? Like not everybody's willing to take a 1-year show me type of contract, right? And so, but like in order for you to be any good, in order for you to go win a Super Bowl, you got to hit in free agency and you got to hit in the draft. And I think the Eagles are a great um, example of that, right? Like those, they have hit in the draft and they have hit in free agency, and they have a really good mix of the two. I think for me, if you're looking at short term free agency, I don't think it solves anything.
Yeah,
I really don't. Like, I feel like, if you're not hitting on if you're not hitting on your 4 or 5 year free agent contracts, you're not going to be very musical chairs with average guys. And there's something that has to be said for cohesiveness, right? Like you have to be willing, you have to hit, and you have to create that locker room structure and that culture, and guys have to fit within that. And a lot of short term guys don't because they're all in it for themselves, and that defeats the entire purpose. So you have to hit on both, free agents, drafts. Yes, are there times where the short contracts are great? Of course there are, but those are few and far between, and so I just don't feel like that's a recipe for success, in my opinion. I'm also not a general manager either, right? And I also don't claim to know everything. So that's just my opinion. I don't feel like those short term contracts really do anything beneficial to you. To me, like those have to be, the really short. Like again, you have a chance bringing a Hall of Fame guy. You bring him at the end of his career for 2 years, absolutely. Like you go out, and you jump at that because he brings a lot of intangibles to the locker room. But to bring in just the average NFL player for 2 years, I don't think you're not going to be successful doing that over and over and over again.
you brought up Howie Roseman, and I think he's the prime example of of the ups and downs in the NFL. Because when he first started off, Jeff, I don't know if you remember, but there was a point where Philly cleaned house, right? And they brought in Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly brought his own scouting department and everything. They annexed Howie Roseman and the old Eagles scouting staff. Like they like kind of like put him in a separate building. They had no voice for 2 years, and then Chip Kelly left, right? So then Howie Roseman got his power back. He had some misses to your point. Like he had, he obviously like took Cox, he had Kelsey or whatever, but then he had picks such as like taking, I think, Jalen Rager over Justin Jefferson, for example, right? Like he's
Yeah.
had his fair
Yeah.
share of misses. But the thing is, he learned, he adapted. And a lot of people think that Philadelphia just goes out and front loads contract. Quite the opposite, actually. The way that they work is they actually like extend out contracts for longer durations by like adding in void years sometimes. So they spread out the cap hits over a longer stretch compared to most teams, but they're not going and just throwing cash at people. That's more the Saints. The Saints are just kind of willy nilly playing with monopoly money. The Eagles are taking calculated risks. You see it. They traded CJ to the Texans. They released Slay. Then they go and they make these pickups that go under the radar, like getting Adoree Jackson, for example, who's a underrated corner from Giants that's probably going to cost them nothing, and take him to take the place of Isaiah Rodgers. All this to say, the point that I'm trying to make is like it's not just about like hitting in the draft or going one way in free agency. You gotta kind of be balanced and like hit on everything, but at the same time, like it's not one free agency. It's not one draft that changes you. It's a culmination. It's the philosophical belief in the building and the direction you're going in that Philadelphia and Kansas City, they're hitting on all cylinders. You see it. They're so fluid that they can literally swap players in and out and turn it bust like Mekhi Becton into an all pro, right? Like that, I mean, not an all pro, but like a respectable player. Mekhi Becton was like probably going to be a career backup. He goes to Philly and now he's probably going to get paid. Like they're just turning people around, which is great to see. And hopefully Atlanta can be like that one day.
Yeah, but it's like anything else, right? Stacking your good days, right? Like if you're going to be successful in something, it doesn't matter if it's weight loss or if it's business or if it's relationships or whatever it is. In order for you to become successful in what you do, you have to stack the good days to
Yeah.
minimize those bad ones, right? And so, Rossman has stacked good days. He's stacked good drafts. He has stacked great free agent periods, right? He has been able to go, luring Saquon from New York, really, and ultimately we all watched that shit unfold last year on TV, right? And I guess it was after it happened, right? But not only did he land Saquon, he basically talked Saquon into not giving New York the last opportunity to match whatever they gave him. And
Exactly.
so he's doing things like that where he valued a running back when most NFL teams are shitting on them these days, right? And so it's going against the grain. It's going to select those Georgia guys off of two of the best college football teams of all time, right? Like it's willing to take chances on certain guys that other teams are like, no, we're not going to do that. And so until you get but again, this didn't happen overnight. Howie's been there since 2010, right? We're talking a decade and a half of a guy being in a role, learning from his early misses, because again, his first three drafts, other than Fletcher Cox and other than Jason Kelsey, um, the other like 21 picks he had in those 3 years were absolutely horrific. But he learned. He changed the evaluation process. He understood. He brought in people into the room who had strengths that he didn't have. Most general managers don't do that, right? They want
Hmm.
their voice to be. They want to create that echo chamber where they have a bunch of yes men. Rossman was like, no, no, I need guys to come in here who understand the salary cap when I don't understand it. I need guys who understand offense if I don't understand it. He was willing to surround himself with guys who had stronger strengths or better strengths where he was deficient, and it was able to learn from those. And you don't see that a whole lot, right? You look at Andy Reid. Andy Reid does the same thing. Andy Reid is not afraid to surround himself with guys who are not afraid to talk to him and say, hey, take a look at this guy. Here's what we can do here. And when you look, and I don't know that Terry Fontenot is that way. It sure as hell it seems like Raheem Morris is creating that echo chamber, which is what worries me. Um, where are you deficient at? Right? Look at Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn in Washington learned from his mistakes here in Atlanta, and instead of creating an echo chamber of no, you weren't the problem, he was willing to face head on his issues and his shortcomings. And now he's taken a team that was absolutely terrible and got them to the NFC title game,
Yeah,
right? Like as a coach and as a general manager, those are the kind of things that you have to do and have to be willing to do. And a lot of guys aren't, because again, everybody at that level has an ego of some sort because you are good at what you do. But are you good enough to realize you are not, you are deficient at very certain things, and addressing those can only make you better. A lot of guys don't want to admit that they have shortcomings.
exactly, and that's the thing, like, had our front office, our coaching staff, like, it just felt like for years it's been an echo chamber, and maybe at the top of that chamber is Rich McKay, so whatever he wants, we kinda just agree to, and everyone just kind of, like, talks themselves into just going with his direction maybe, but one more thing that, you know, Philly, Casey do really well, and you talked about it, Jeff, is anticipating the market. Look what they did. They went and they got Saquon Barkley last year, right? They paid him 12 million a year. Nothing. Howie got him for pennies on the dollar. But what did he do in this offseason? He went and he didn't have to, but gave Saquon a $20 million per year, 2-year extension, the highest contract ever for a running back. When Barkley was still under contract, he didn't need to do that. But why did Roseman do that, Jeff? Well, next year, two big running backs, two young running backs are going to be eligible for extensions. One of which is our own Bijan Robinson. The other is Detroit's Jahmyr Gibbs. And what Roseman didn't want is when we go in and hand Bijan, I don't know, now that the market's 20, probably we're going to have to pay him 22, 23. When the Detroit goes and gives Gibbs 24, he kind of locked Barkley in at 20, knowing that this guy's underpaid. He's at 12 million. I'm going to go in at 20, lock those in, not for this year, but for future years. Because once you get to those years, those numbers become stale. So what the smart thing that they do in Philly is that they get today's contract extension dollars, they apply it to the end of the contracts, and then, once you get to those years, it looks a lot smaller than the average market rate. So because of the Eagles, we're probably gonna have to pay Bijan at least 20 million. He has to make more than Barkley. He's a young guy. So I mean that just goes to show you that's that next level thinking that I feel like our front office needs to have. And it could even start this year. Like if you wanted to get ahead of the receiver market, right? You could go ahead this year. You're eligible to extend Drake London. I didn't hear an ounce of that, of the front office thinking about that, because the thing is, once Jamar Chase's contract hits and he gets 45 million a year, all of a sudden we could have had maybe London at 30 million per year. Now, I think his asking price, Jeff, if we wait, is gonna be a little under 40 to 45 million. If you wait a year and he crushes it one more time, that's probably what he's gonna want.
You know, as a Braves fan, right? We have a general manager here by the name of Alex Anthopoulos, right? And what has made him a genius is with these young guys, because in baseball you can draw out a contract for years, right? Like you have these guys under your basically your control for the first 6 to 8 years of their career, and they really there's nothing they can do about it. But what he's done, and he did this with Ronald Acuna Jr. He did it with Ozzy Albies. He's done it with a lot of these young guys that show something their rookie within their first couple of years. Is he goes ahead and he gives them an extension, right? Like he goes ahead and says, we're going to bypass all of that nonsense. I'm going to give you, 20 million a year, because he knows that they're on pace to go get 50, right? But in your first 2 years, you jump at that. Why? Because now you don't have to go through the entire process of Major League Baseball and what they allow you to do. So he's been able to lock up young talent for years at a really substantial discounted rate. One, it gives the player a huge increase in their pay, and then two, it's a team friendly deal, right? So you make everybody happy. So I say all of that to say, yes, if you are smart, you lock up Drake London now because you can get him for that 18 to 24 million dollar mark. Whereas if he bets on himself, now you're looking at 35. I don't think he's ever going to get 40 because he's not even close to being on Justin Jefferson's level. I don't. I mean, this may piss off people, but he's not even on T. Higgins' level. If we're being completely honest, right? But his asking price is absolutely going to go up if you allow him to have another great year. And again, stack years, right? If he stacks a year on top of what he just had, his asking price goes up. So, yes,
Yeah.
having that foresight to come out and say, you know what, this guy's on a different trajectory now. Let's go ahead and lock him up. Let's give him money that's going to be team friendly for us, but more importantly, is going to make him happy now. And that way um, we kind of knock out two things at one time.
Jeff, if 25 million is on the table, I am running to Drake London's agent and locking that in now. That is insane. Look, I agree with you. He is not Justin Jefferson. He is not Jamar Chase. The only problem is if Penix feeds this guy and he gets a 1,500-yard, 15 touchdown season, it doesn't matter if he's as good as those guys or not. He's going to want their money. That's the issue. You know what I mean? Like that, he's gonna try to go for that. If he gets an all pro, who's who's to say he shouldn't get that? We know. I mean, I'm with you. I'll push you on the T Higgins one. I think London could get there, but London compared to the top of the league, that's a little different. That he is not close to like the upper echelon of receiver. But the problem is, if he stacks a good season, like Jeff said, we could have a major issue. At 25 million, that is nothing for a wide receiver. Devontae Adams, for example, from the Rams, he's getting 22 million per year. He's on his last legs. So locking up a receiver like London for another 3-4 years at 25, sign me up for that right away. Um, and with that, guys, I think we're getting close to our close. I appreciate y'all joining us and hopping on here. We'll be back next week. Similar time, probably. I'll check in with Jeff on his schedule, but seriously, appreciate all the comments, your support, or whatever. We couldn't do it without you. And, um, anytime if I see you guys like interacting with me too, like I know a lot of you guys just like started following me. I know a lot of you guys have been following Jeff. I apologize if I didn't hit follow back right away, but like if I see that you're a Falcons fan and you're interacting with us, like I will follow back or whatever. I really appreciate you guys like supporting us, following us. But yeah, really looking forward to a full off season doing this with Jeff.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. It's been fun. Appreciate you guys. Yeah, same time. Hopefully next week.
Yep, sounds good, guys. Have a great weekend and hope you all enjoyed.